Yeah.
I mean, they've gone through a lot, and they've actually written pura itna sara, where they talk about regime change, they talk about the direct attacks, they talk about engagement policies which were done by the Obama regime, they talk about the engagement by the Biden, and they talk about the
But
JCPO.
no, they
JCPOA.
talk about yeah, about Clinton administration actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, when you look at this, there is one question that does arise, which is very simple. Bada simple sa sawal hai, sir. That Iran is a ready target. Why don't they go and attack, sir? Simple, straight. Go attack, finish it off. What's the big deal, sir? So my point is a larger point here. Ki bhai, your enemy might be ready to take a hit. You've already got the upper hand. Would you want to kind of go finish the job because then the job becomes bigger? Or how do you look at it, sir?
Yeah, what experiences the Americans and Chinese both have had. When they burned their fingers in Vietnam, right? And the Chinese burned their finger again, partially in Vietnam, but definitely in Korea. They realized one thing, that when you touch something called war, it sets you back domestically and internationally, economically, and in all sense, it really sets you back, right? So is it worth it? And second, look at the American smartness also. In First World War and the Second World War, when did they join? They joined when the major contestants were actually onto their knees, tired, thak gaye the wo. And now they come afresh, after having prepared their entire system. They've had the war planes, they've done the exercises and everything. And totally fresh, they will come, and thereafter they'll choose a side and then bang up the enemy. And thereafter they'll make great Hollywood movies and all. And thereafter they are into it, right? So then they realize that it is better to kill the enemy from within. Have the patience, have a strategic patience, have restraint, use economic prowess, use multilateral concept of sanctions. Thereafter, you start choking out the country, and once you have got enough dissension from within, there is an economic challenges. You got people on the buy from inside, and you are having pressures from the outside. Thereafter, you can actually dry the blood out of the country, and thereafter you can take over and do whatever you want to do. And if you, by the way, in the whole process, if you leave them to the ravages of the environment, it's okay. It doesn't concern them, because they have got their pipelines of oil, for example, going all over the world. Where the oil is coming out, they got those links there. The oil will come, the money will come, the manufactured goods will come, the resources will come to them. So they got time in the entire world through corporations, through alliances, and everything. So I think there's one very good quality which we don't understand in our country, and that is called strategic strength. You may be damn powerful, but you need to control your uh,
Escalation?
urge to go out to war. Okay.
Hmm.
And that comes to two more papers which I have written in this, which is part of this book called Reflection on Strategy. The people who make strategy, and I give a lot of credit to our political dispensation, right? Or this thing, that they have been very smart in taking decisions when to unsheath the weapon or their blade, and when to sheath their blade is a very difficult call, because eventually you are not able to define your military political objective. If you don't have very clearly defined objectives, then you are actually doomed for a long time. And you see what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, or even for Israel and Hamas. Uh, you are only going much more into debt and into challenges which are going to happen. So these two articles, one article I had written taking Kargil as a reference point in US, and that got a lot of eyeballs, and it got published in Small War Journal also there. And I reproduced it here in this book, Reflection on Strategy, basically in the context of Sindoor as well, a little bit on this. So I'll just highlight few very important facets, like, a lot of time the military people who are gung ho, on the prowess, they will always say, or people who have actually not seen bloodbath, or they don't understand the economic consequences of going to war to a country, they always wanted to expand the war in Kargil intrusion, right? I was a major that time, and I was on one of the sides, or I was also part of Operation Vijay Kargil in a different manner. And oh, by the way, there's a book me and Colonel Ajay Rana are planning to write on untold story of Kargil operation, because uh, in the everything got covered because of the media being, at one place in that zone, but there were a lot of other tales of institutional integrity which we want to talk of, because some people did right things, and therefore in Operation Vijay Kargil those wrong things didn't happen to us, or in that manner. So this is what the book I want to write on this, so we are writing on it. So this issue which was talked about, that we should have expanded, gone out to IB, we could have gone across, was something which I was trying to debate, that why did not the government of that time, by the way, it was a minority government, right? So look at the context of that point of time, that firstly they took a call to evict itself, right? Which is something which I don't think the Pakistanis were expecting. I can assure you, most of us were not expecting. And that call was taken. And second was a very clear articulation of political order being given, that you will not escalate it beyond the lines where the intrusions have taken place, right? And all those orders were very clearly mandated. So look at the, give out few strategic environment, the contextual environment at that point of time. We had just exploded 1998 our nuclear test, and we have paria in the eyes of the nation, of the world. Japan didn't want to talk to us. They had broken off all the aid and money which were, and we were a very, very poor country at that point of time. We're not rich country as today. Our, I think this defense budget was 2.3 of GDP. With the kind of economy which we had, it was actually coming pittance. We were sanctioned by the entire world. We were not being treated right at that point of time. The government was minority government. Pakistan was on a high, right? It was on a high because they had just won so-called the Taliban war, and they were the people on the good books of the Americans, having done what they wanted to, and they had on one side a secure Taliban government, which was a so-called friendly government at that point of time. Onto the one edge, they had the strategic depth, and you had Pervez Musharraf as a boss, who, by the way, was hurting because of his Siachen connection, and he wanted to take that badla and the revenge of Siachen. He had tried to do it when he was a DGMO. He had made a plan, given it to Karamat, and Karamat refused to go along with it. Benazir was presented twice by him, and she also refused to go with it. And here he had a guy by the name of Nawaz Sharif, who was not interested much into the military affairs. He wanted him to do whatever you want to do, but the fact is, let me make my money. I'm a businessman, and see how I can manage Pakistan and look after my country. So this was the contextual environment, and in the world also, besides America, the only thing good about America was that time was they were wanting to have a bilateral resolution to take place between India and Pakistan on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, which was something what Pakistan was quite surprised. They had given their blood and toil. They had actually sold out the country to the Americans, and certainly the Clinton administration was after them, that resolved it bilaterally, and they always wanted a third player, and they continue to have even today the same orientation. So this was the context, right? And they need to do something very quickly, and they also realized that there is a minority government there in India. And Pervez Musharraf also realized that he was also running out of time, same as Asim Munir did, right? Not much difference, right? And let me do something silly as possible. And it was very beautifully selected. Kargil sector, right? A little towards the Kashmir side, and all along the Kargil sector, these areas used to be traditionally winter vacated, So it was something like a mutual thing, difficult to occupy, cannot hold in the winters, very tough on equipment, men. We used to lose unnecessary lives and all. And there was a known protocol that once the winters started getting harsh, because routes are avalanche prone, people used to get buried into about couple of 15, 20, 30 feet of snow. So we will maintain this posture, we'll hold the critical post, but the ones which were could not be managed to be held will be vacated, and and we'll carry out certain degree of patrolling and all to monitor those. And in this segment, he knew the process which was on. And in this segment, this was very critical, was in Dras, Kargil area, which is to dominate the only artery at that point of time. That Rohtang axis had just not was truly functional at that sense. And this was the only very critical axis in which is to maintain entire Ladakh, civilian military forces, which is to again go on to the Chinese side, to eastern Ladakh and towards the Pakistani side or POJK side to manage, and Siachen, everything was being maintained from here. So if you actually choked it here, you will get your revenge on not only in Siachen side, but all other places, right? So if you recall of the firing and the fighting which happened, actually from the Daraz road or from Myanmar and all those places, you could see the Pakistanis sitting and over watching these areas of where the vehicles had to move, and the vehicles had to actually, water had to move in the night in trickles and under enemy fire, right? And that was the case along wherever they came in, along the road on the heights. So this was his design, I guess, at that point of time. And he was expecting that there was a minority government will not be able to take a decision. And earlier also, certain losses were actually kept under wraps, so-called, because governments didn't want to talk about it. And line of control actually meant where you are there and what you could control is yours, right? And that is how it will be managed. He thought that maybe that decision will take time. And if you recall, in April 1999, the government technically had fallen. There was a caretaker government kind of a thing which had come about. So this was the geopolitical domestic construct. Indian Army, Indian Armed Forces were on a very low key in terms of equipment availability because of processes and the GDP, the kind of money which was funding which was being given to us. In terms of a commitment, by the way, a large force was committed in Jammu and Kashmir for nearly at that point of time for about 9 to 10 years now in 1999. So a lot of Pakistani top leadership also thought that Indian army is fatigued, demoralized, totally committed in Jammu and Kashmir, and there will be forces which will be shortfall, their equipment challenges, and how will they come to respond for this thing. And actually having served more than about 8 or 9 tenures in mountains, and I can tell you that defending in mountains, even in an open trench, is far more easier than climbing up and attacking and recapturing the ground. You are actually walking through the death trap in the mountains. So especially in the high mountains, because there's just no place to open. A shell landing 50 meters away will have shrapnel's effect through the stones which will fly around and kill a chap or injure a chap, right? And let's say if it lands up in the front on the top and you're climbing, the whole hail will come down to you like flying thousands of bullets to take number of people out. So you may be hiding anywhere. So, there's a huge challenge. And they thought that if they are able to delay for just 2-3 months, then the monsoons will come and thereafter the government will be changing. And by the time you take a call, they would have built up sufficient strength and artillery behind that the next season, if Indian Army comes to take a call, it will be impossible to carry out this thing. And I can assure you, it will be impossible. A lot of people said that point of time, where was the rush? You could have waited. I don't think so. There was a choice to wait actually with us. Every week you delay in mountains, there are issues and challenges. And I think a very smart move was taken. that we restricted to that area. And after having evicted, right, we didn't pursue it. So let's see what are the outcomes, strategic outcomes which came out. Immediately, the world started recognizing the country, India, as a very stable and responsible country, right? We evicted, we stopped. We were not wanting to escalate. The escalation control was with us. We had the just at balance to go after them. But, a lot of people said that economically we could withstand and we may have, there was a very famous quote said by somebody who said that our bleed may be like a finger being cut, but the Pakistanis will bleed to death in the war. So, we could have expanded it. But the fact of the matter is that if you are able to achieve your end state, that India was out of isolation straight away. The world started engaging with you. Our military prowess came to be recognized world over that, we can achieve what we want to achieve. And if you remember, if you read, the guns were moved from plain sectors and desert sectors to carry out firing and all in that location, right? So there was a concentration, there was a movement, there's a whole degree of coordination which happened at that point of time. Of course, we could not use the Air Force because the Stingers in that manner and other constraints were there. But wherever we use Air Force and wherever we use the long range stuff came out very, very nice. And I think all this played into a responsible act, and we did not lose men. Our economy was remained in under control, and thereafter it started progressing. So there were a huge set of strategic outcomes which came out. And if you recall, and if you put a point of time that when Pakistan's downfall started, and when truly India's rise commenced in the stature of the world, is this point of 1999 when Kargil war happened, right?
Yeah.
So you see, the benchmarks of success were achievable, and once achieved, we did not extend the benchmark, and that was the smartest move, I think, which are the top leadership, whosoever was involved, had taken, and that is what I referred to. So connected to this, when this book was going to publish, suddenly Op Sindoor happened, and then I wrote an article again about Operation Sindoor, and I'll just give a very quick reference that this is not the first time these things have happened. You please look at the strikes. I'll just tell you a very quick. Like Balakot strike. Okay, we could have escalated it, but there was a symbolism which was to be said. We did the symbolism, we stopped, right?
Yeah.
So escalation control was while the enemy had done the silly act, but if you take the eyeball of Viksit Bharat of 2047 and you get into a war Bharat today, that Viksit 2047 will never happen. So you need to continue to punish and be recognized in the world as a responsible nation so that the world continues to respect you and connect with you. Otherwise, you'll also be treated like what Zelensky or Putin or how Netanyahu or, there are so many people who are being treated in the world and with disdain, and people are not going to actually, and frankly, for India, people may say anything, because of a peculiar nature of civilization and of our culture. You will not have very many people coming to help you now or ever. ठीक है, आप कितना भी कुछ कर लो, right? You look at the Nathula clash which happened. Okay, in 1967 we carried out tactical artillery strike when the Chinese started to feel funny. 62 they had won, right? But in 67 there's a credible punishment which was given to them, and thereafter it was allowed to de-escalate, right? So somebody will say that we could have gone for much more. Chaude ho jao, gango ho jao, jingoistic ho jao. Doesn't we had a tactical advantage? We continue to maintain Operation Cactus Lily. When we went into Cactus, when we went to Maldives, we had a selective aim achieved. Thereafter, once we had to come out, we came out very quickly. So it's always better to do acts, even like Doklam, Galwan. There was a whole political environment. People who suddenly started feeling muscular, and in their times, the government had lost, the country had lost spaces. कोई उसकी बात नहीं करता, right? But I think these are sensible decisions till the time you want, and even if you're powerful, there are ways and means to achieve these ends. So try and achieve in those manners. Two great powers never fight directly. The great powers never fight directly. They always fight through proxies,
Yeah.
right? Through smart maneuvers. And that is where strategic restraint, the restraint comes about in using somebody else to do your bit, right? So, and I'm not wanting to comment upon what is happening now in the geopolitical arena. We should be enough that we should not be a proxy for somebody else's fight. We should use proxies to do our fight, and there are enough people who are available to do it. And I think this is happening. So, the second article when I wrote again about the current Operation Sindoor, and people, in fact, if you watch all television debate, I think possibly as one of the rare people who was contrary to say that military objectives should be restricted to terror strikes. The next level of escalation, whenever it has happened, it should be left into our control. It should not be allowed to go out. So put a hammer down, boom. But then always say that, okay, that's it. Thank you so much. And therefore, there have been a lot of outcry that the hands were tied, only terror infrastructure was to be hit. We could have gone for X, Y, Z. The responsible part of a country is very important to be also being projected. And I think when the terror camps were struck, Pakistan would have not gone. Something wrong happened with Asim Munir's mind that they'd gone to try to escalate. They thought they will continue to get away with it. Or there was maybe a shock which they did not realize that Bahawalpur and Muridke will be hit the way they were hit. Right? They would have accepted it, what happened in other areas, Sialkot and beyond. But when you hit the headquarters, I think they got shaken up and they had to showcase certain degree of bonhomie or brothership with these two organizations in terms of response. And when they escalated, and I think the government came to know of some funny thing going to happen on the night of 9/10, and we possibly preempted it with that again, the tool in the manner which we did. And that ensured, and therefore, if you recall, it was not only military target in that sense. There were very critical military targets which were hit, which had strategic importance, which had linkages beyond the geographical borders of Pakistan. You are hitting some other countries. They're saying that, look, the people whom you have been supporting, that chap is going down the chute. If you don't come down, your SS are also going to go down. Right? So I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. And therefore, the political military objectives were achieved in the first night. But escalation was done to ensure that the major part of escalation doesn't happen, that you don't have to go to a war technically. Right? And therefore, what happened on 10th, when you achieved all that, so that is why if the enemy is running with his tail behind, one way to look after is that he's down, let's go kill him, right? But are we Israelis? Do we have the compulsions of Israelis, what they are doing? Because Israelis are doing because of certain compulsions, right? They got a geographical compulsions. Do we have the compulsion of the Russians or Ukrainians to continue to do a fight? Should we allow, by going to a war or a conventional fight with a country which is killing itself, right? By going to kill it, you may revive it. So, there is a smarter move to let it kill itself, because virtually Asim Munir and Shahbaz Sharif, by their actions, are not reviving the country, they are killing themselves. So I thought those are the things which I have articulated in the book, but there are about 12 papers. Each of the papers are part of a strategic correction from the practitioner's point of view, that how does it play out at the practitioner level when you make a strategy at the top, or from the practitioner perspective, how the strategy should roll out.
Yeah. Because one thing that I also figured out in learning for me was that escalation matrix control is the most critical. Otherwise, you get stuck in that never-ending loop War is like a
Because
loop.
the people who are exciting you to fight are the ones who are never going to fight. And they are the ones who are always going to come out to say you could have done things better. So let the guys who are doing the thing take the call what they're doing, because they have all the inputs which are available to them. They are geopolitical, they are economic, they are informational, they are technological, they are military, the domestic challenges, the external challenges, opportunities, right? So we must look everything. I think there are smarter people. A person like me who's now an armchair, right? I was in that part and I used to worry that why are the people trying to excite, right? When you don't know what's happening. Okay.
हाँ वो भी होता है सर, करेक्ट. जोश भी होता है ना थोड़ा सा.
तो ये तो तुम्हारी उसमें आ रहा हुआ उल्टा है ना?
नहीं, it's straight sir. Reflections on
Straight.
strategy.
Okay. Yeah.
Guys, that's the book. You can check it out. But sir, thank you so much. And that's how, and I'm going to take it in a light way. Apologies to the general, but that's how the Americans steal stuff. They steal from other people's papers and make their own papers and strategies. So thank you, sir, for that.
Thank you.
You did it as a study, and they took it as a challenge. So let's see how the challenge actually opens up. Always a pleasure talking to you, sir. And my request to all the audiences, like, subscribe, and of course, support the channel as much as you can. Namaskar. Jai Hind. Jai Bharat.
Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.